Hello, ladies. And here we go again. One freezing climate, and other one sweating like you don't know what. Oh gosh, always a pleasure to see you.
And then one wearing wool in the attic on a summer day.
Yeah, I wish I had wool here. What I lack, good winter clothes.
Interesting that they don't have warm clothes in Argentina. Yes.
They do, but I'm just passing through for a short time.
I know, of course.
The thing that I love about wool, especially merino wool, is that it regulates the temperature, both in too hot and in too cold.
Yes, it's perfect.
Yes. I loved letting it on after bath when I was a kid. You get this wool undershirt. Some people got. I loved it. It was so comfortable. But other people hate it.
Problem is, if you take wool back to Brazil, it'll mold easily. You can throw it away after the time in the tropics.
In the humidity.
Yes.
The humidity. Okay, I was just thinking, guys, girls, ladies, wonderful women. Last time we were talking about freedom, and I just felt a little bit like there was something left to say. The time was flying so fast, and how about just if there is anything you feel you would love to address and talk about being free, and I also see it. What does it mean for the future? How do we visualize us living as a free people, or let's say free beings, living women and men in the future? What do we need to change? Whatever. Who wants to start? Nicole?
I think I'll let Una go, because I understood you briefly mentioned a beautiful list you had made. So
I mean, this is like a list of stuff that, kind of springs to mind that is not allowed to talk about. We don't have freedom to speak about certain things.
Yes.
Which I can respect that. And, 90% of the time I respect people's freedom to have a life that I don't necessarily agree with, or opinions that I don't necessarily agree with. But then that 10% of my own freedom is what I'm going to cultivate into a life that is 100% free for me. If I can't talk to people about stuff, I'm not going to want to hang out with them. It's as simple as that. Like the people that I really vibe with, that I get along well with, are the ones that can deal with me having an opinion that is shocking, or that can allow themselves to doubt stuff that we are so grown to see as a rule. You do not go there. You do not speak about this stuff. We all have the right to talk about things. We all have a right to have opinions about things, and then it's our choice whether we risk that in public, to have those opinions out ourselves as that. I guess I've always just taken the route of like live and let live, and, do as wish, harm to none. And sometimes my opinions can harm people, and I don't want to do that. But it doesn't change the way that I feel about things, I'm going to allow myself to feel those feelings and have this sometimes very conservative view, I guess, or old school, my freedom right now is all focused upon, like, I grew up in a world where you live here in Iceland, you set up your life, you buy a flat, you have kids, you do a job, and then you just get on with it, and you don't, if you want to live somewhere else, you're kind of like being selfish, or, and I don't want to do that anymore. I want to use my freedom to move into a place which is going to be Abruzzo in Italy, and grow my own food, and spend more time living outside and enjoying life, and less time hurdled wearing wool in an attic in July. Like, I've had enough of it. And I didn't used to consider this freedom, because it was just like this Jentilóin, tall poppy syndrome. Oh, I must just do what everybody else does, and until I was like, wow, if people don't wish that for me, that I am happy and live my full potential as a free human being, are they then worth hanging around for? Surely those that really love me, they wish that I do the thing that makes me happy, and wish that freedom for me, even if it means uncomfortableness for them, or loss of something, if they lose contact with me and the kids through it or something, like, I think that's really important, to respect other people's freedom, and let them be free, and then thus you can become more free in yourself as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, we choose to not be free because it's safe, we choose to kind of use it as something that, is the reason why we are not living the perfect life, because that's easy.
May I add an aspect to that? I think it's not only about being safe. We are so deeply taught to take care of others, to not do things because, which these past 2 years have shown perfectly. You do everything to save others, even if it doesn't do the job. Because I just have this situation here where we are 3 parties sharing an apartment, and I'm sharing a bathroom with the couple. They're Argentinians, but they have spent 1 year in Germany. And there's this one side where I can feel that often they do certain things to please me, even if maybe I don't even like them.
Mm-hmm.
And some things which are not so good for me. And it's about communicating these things. I mean, I guess, for example, they believe because I'm from Germany that they have to be more quiet. The shh. And I told them that I love it when they laugh, and I can hear them, yes, but it's so beautiful to hear people laugh, and I don't want them to stop that. So it doesn't affect my freedom. It gives me something nice, even if I sit here work. If they're laughing next door, it helps me. It's a good vibration. On the other hand, in the bathroom, they always think they have to use this artificial, horrible spray. For me, these sprays, they affect me so deeply. I get a headache because they're not natural. And of course, they're trying to be nice and cover up their smells. Also, something people don't talk about. And today, I just told him if we could please find a different solution, and I'm willing to pay more money for a natural spray or whatever, or I'd rather smell their smells. I don't care. There's a window we could open. But this chemical stuff, it hurts me. My nose is so sensitive. I walk out and have a headache. and they're trying to be nice, and for them it's a normal thing to do. I know that. So it's really, how do you say it without hurting someone, you know? Yeah, and this is about trying to take care and being nice, but you do it out of your own perspective, and that's the problem. So you think you're helping someone and being nice, and maybe even take back your own freedom, like not laugh, don't live out your own freedom in order to be nice to someone. And sometimes it's the complete wrong thing to do.
It's usually assumptions. You're assuming you know what's best for the other person. And I mean, nobody, you know, I had imagined that people would be like, you can't move away from Iceland. Iceland is your place and you belong here. And then nobody has said that to me, you know. Everybody's just mega happy. And so just my own perception of being tied down, having to, you know, owe it to my family to be in the same place, to be accessible. Because absolutely, assumptions are often what, you know, inhibit our freedom much more than some actual thing. I agree with you.
Yes,
my father actually.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say it's so good that we land on the assumptions and the consideration, and also thinking of what other people think of us. All these things are programming that we need to free up, let's say, but also it's the communication. And where we communicate from with our own perception, and how can we then make the other, let's say, being understand where we are coming from. And this is, I think, the biggest challenge of humanity is the communication, and taking responsibility for our own emotions, our own actions, because I'm going to hurt someone if I say this. No, you say this because you care for the being, and the other one needs to take responsibility if it triggers, even because otherwise we are going to tiptoe life, and you know, we're always going to trigger someone just by being present in a space. What I really like, I'm sometimes witnessing, how do you say not witnessing? It's not that, oh gosh, can't remember the word, vitna í, in Icelandic.
Oh God, anyway. Now
quoting or, yeah, no, but my daughter said, Mom, it's, we can think of it this way. Some people are so afraid of being in the public. You can't do this in public, can't do this in public, can't do this. So it's we have all these rules of how to behave in the public. And she was in a garden, in a big garden in Holland somewhere, Arnhem, I think. She was doing all these movements and, you know, jumping around and stretching, and her boyfriend going, God, you are in public. What are you thinking? And she said, I am on the planet. And so now it's either you are public or you're on the planet. And I thought it was such a cute thing to say. Remember, we are on the planet. And as long as you don't harm anyone, feel free to move and be yourself. How much we put us in a box and in public.
Yeah.
Just wanted, you know. So I'm on the planet.
Well, I think this is something we carry deep in our DNA as information, because if you live in, I mean, again, we have a lot of countries where you have cameras everywhere watching you and your behavior. And in dictatorships, you don't do certain things in public. It can be very dangerous, very dangerous. And we've been through so many times and ages where we would have been killed or brought to prison or burnt or whatever. Burnt and being killed being the same thing.
Of course, there are reasons for it, why we're behaving like this. But in many instances, we need to, I think, look back. I just want to squeeze in. There's a lot of fear about all these techniques that are coming, all this AI, and I know my phone is spying on me. I know Zoom is spying on me. We can find out, and you know, Facebook or Messenger.
I love to greet them. Hello.
Even Telegram, and then I tend to think, well, I don't really have anything to hide. And what if we were in 5D, where most of our energetic exchange is telepathic anyway? You know?
I think this is really like designed to work on our fear, you know, to make us fear. Like Arnik, when he listened to the previous one about freedom, you know, he was like, I would have so been wanting to be there with you and say, you know, something about just that it's all fear, like fear inducing in order for us to start self-policing our natural freedom, you know. And of course, like we used to live in societies where it was important to not seem mad or to just prove that we fitted in, you know, because that was important to us because we were interdependent on our valuable societal partners, you know, everybody around us. But this thing of like, you know, the internet listening to you, like your phone is listening to you. This has become a fear with people, and they start self-policing themselves, and they don't share things because they don't want the baddies to hear you or see you. While I think it's much more it's much more about the history of what you search and what you've done, what trail you leave, that gets the algorithm to present to you things so that you feel like you're being listened to, you know. But the fact is that we leave so much trace. There is this digital footprint, basically, that they can decipher and make you feel like you're being listened to. And of course, you're being monitored because your information is being mined and sold. You know, anything that you access that is for free, like this Zoom, they are monitoring how long, where, who, and why, you know, and that there's actually somebody from there listening to us and dotting down like red words is really unlikely. But because we fear it, we keep ourselves down, you know. So I just found a really good point.
They are able to filter certain words.
Yeah, oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. Also on telephones.
I think I mean, the more reach you have, the bigger of a potential threat you could be, you know. But like us three having a conversation about stuff that we feel you're not allowed to speak about, I mean, what power do we actually have? Like, there's basically what I'm saying is that we have nothing to fear other than fear itself, you know, because that keeps our freedom down, keeps us self-policing and policing each other, you know. And in public, you know, this thing, like, that's the fear of being excluded from the village. And
to be the weirdo, to be different, to be stupid. I think a lot of people fear to be labeled stupid. Really?
No, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Absolutely. That is huge.
It's
and I mean, back in the village days, that would have meant that you wouldn't be able to help out and be of use to the rest of the villagers, you know. that you would become a burden on the village,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that you could actually cause something terrible happening for everybody in the village if you went and put the wrong thing on the fields or let the sheep onto the wrong pastures, or, you know, I don't know. I think it's like fair enough that we want to be sane, that we want to seem clever. But I think when you just internalize you are sane, regardless of how you are clever, regardless of how you measure up to Albert Einstein, you know, we this thing of like, we are enough, you know.
So do you think that is where this drive to add value comes from?
From the villagers, you mean? Or,
Because I think this is one part that blocks us from being free. As long as I still think I need to contribute something, I cannot be free, because my value is not from within myself. It's by something I do or say, but not by who I am.
you know, if we internalize that we add value just by being, that we, you know, our energy is our heart is a center that sends out energy, sends out a frequency, and if that frequency is good, you having that frequency is enough value to anything. You know, like,
Do you think that is where it comes from originally, that we need to add value?
Yes, I think it might be. It's a good point that we need to be contributing to the village, contributing and value with what we say and what we do, working hard to make things go around. But imagine, just the image came to me when you were saying, Una, about just to be, and both of you, that being is not enough, apparently, just to be you. But imagine if you were so full of peace, and you will sit in a garden, that's how I saw it, just in your peaceful self light, you know, and people will come and sit next to you on the bench, just to feel the energy. They will sit for 10 minutes just like next to you, and then they will go on doing whatever they were doing. So that's enough, that you're just being with your huge aura.
Okay, now I'll now it comes to but. the but. The rare part. So where do you get your food from? No tomato will grow if.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
but aren't there a lot of people already living this life that you're describing? I mean, if you go to a guru in India, you know, they're essentially just being, and they exude this energy, and you sit next to them, you go study with them for a couple of weeks or months or however, and then you take that with you into life, and this frequency of their soul is what gives you your purpose for the rest of your life. You keep on, this is the pinnacle of being to you, you know. I think that's already happening, and I think we can all be that guru, you know. We can all find that within ourselves, and we don't need to let other people have access to it, you know. It doesn't have to have, to me, that's kind of like, that's being, and then having like a purpose or like adding value to other people's lives. I think it should just be enough to sit in that garden and radiate that energy, and that's then one cell in the body of the earth radiating energy, you know. I like to always like think kind of fractally about these things, that, you know, like we are our own God, and, you know, the cells in our body is like us on the earth, and then this God image, you know, is whatever the will or the free power or the soul, you know. And as long as one cell is doing the right thing, it's one less cell that has got cancer or is doing the wrong thing or is disintegrating, you know. I think that should be enough in a way, that we just see ourselves as cells that are doing the right thing, you know, and this the freedom to not be affected by, you know, like what's going on in the world. That means that I can't be this person because the world is so bad and everything's so evil. And to me, it's more like, I guess, about focus. Like I have to actively focus on this freedom, on this light, you know, and I get led astray very easily and very often. And I find myself depressed and sad and angry, or rummaging in my past experiences about shit that I should have forgotten and forgiven long ago, you know. And I have to bring myself actively to this, like, hey, I'm free to feel whatever I want to feel. I have to focus on my light and on my, you know, on the positives that this life has in order to be able to continue. Otherwise, I'm just going to go more and more into feeling like a slave to the news and to other people's opinions, and I don't know. And yeah, this success, the idea of having to be successful is ridiculously entangling. You know, we have, I don't know, like I find Iceland is particularly like this. You know, you have to go to university, you have to get your degrees, you have to buy a bigger house, you have to get a Jeep, you have to get a summer house. And, you know, like it sounds super privileged because it is, you know, and maybe in that privilege, are you focused on, you know, not only surviving, or where it's harder to be, you know, you're focused on surviving and making it through the next day and having food and shelter. Here, you know, there's always this need for something more. I need more value, more this. You know,
Iceland's not the only land.
no,
This is
No, but it is extreme, Nicole. It's
really
extreme. Yes. Denmark is bad. Well, I lived in Denmark, I lived in Germany, but
Germany is bad too.
yes, Denmark is and tops it, I would say.
Okay,
This
maybe
is,
because
also
it's smaller and the pressure is
yes,
stronger.
everybody knows
we're
each
so
other.
newly rich. That's the thing as well, you know.
Also that.
All the aluminium smelters and the tourism, you know, like in Germany, I remember people living in the same rental apartment for the rest of their lives because it's a great system for renters. Here, there is not such a good system for renters, so you have to buy a place, and then that gets too boring, and everybody else around you is buying a bigger place, and then you need a summer house, you know, and you need a Jeep, and you need. It's like the
All right.
is really, really strong, and I think that was my biggest feat, where I was like, fuck this, I'm not gonna live in this 9 to 5, you know, like buy a bigger flat, and just like realize that I was in fact free to be on the planet, you know, like Bibi was talking about, you know, that we live on a planet, that we don't just belong to a piece of land. I think that's super healthy for everybody. And I'm sure you, Nicole, have also, you know, long ago realized that you live on the planet, you know, and not just like, but where in Germany did you grow up?
I did not grow up in Germany.
No, okay, sorry.
I was a traveler since I'm born.
But what is your German cultural background? Like what parts?
My parents are Germans. They come like from the east and west middle part. I mean, west towards close to Dortmund, and east close to Kassel or Hanover, that area. But I did not grow up there. I grew up in 5 different countries. First time I actually lived in Germany, I was 17.
But I also wanted to come back to the image you know, we're all a little bit, maybe not you, Nicole, so much, a little bit connected to Facebook as a social platform. And you know, I have a wide range of friends from all kinds of directions, probably because of my, and every time I put out a picture, everybody, yay! If I put something in my work, nobody mentions or looks at it. No, that's not true. But you know, it's the, if somebody gets a degree, 500 likes. All the kids getting degrees, or they get confirmed. And I just keep thinking, the educational system is so rotten. And here we are, this is one of the taboos, right? Here are people praising their kids for getting all these degrees. And I'm just thinking, in the new world, if you know what's behind the degree, now I'm going on a very thin ice here, but just I can't praise it. And also, I'm so proud of my child. I'm so proud because they got this degree. And if this is what is, if your child approves something with a degree, I'm proud of my children no matter, with or without a degree. But it's so much emphasis on this.
Yeah.
May I tell a story about that? Something
Yes.
I very early on taught my daughter, because I had to live through it, and understood very early on how degrees are made, because it really depends on how teachers see you. And if they think you're stupid, you will never have a chance to have a good degree. And I had been in 2 schools in 2 different countries, always different systems and languages, where I was kind of the best of the whole school. I mean, of the whole school history even. And then I changed country again. And because I came from Africa and I was a German, which was not so well seen in that country, and because in that school, the 6 was the best degree, and in the new school, the 1 was the best degree, I was declared stupid from the first day. And that was the end of my school career.
No.
Which was not funny at that time. I didn't understand what was happening. And I did not laugh about it. But anyway, it made me understand that it really depends on what they think about you. So it's something I told my daughter quite early on. If they like you, you'll have good degrees, so don't worry.
Well, it's not only the degree, it's also that I'm actually more worried about. Of course, the degrees are bullshit anyway, but it's the material, the imprinting, the brainwashing.
Yeah, of course.
I was super rebellious. I didn't finish my studentspróf. What's that? Like the A-level.
Abitur in German. What is it called in the student exam or something like
in
this?
English.
College.
I came into that school, and for the first time in my life, I could choose what I could study and what I wanted to do, and I chose all the fun things, and I left out all of the boring things like Danish and Icelandic and math and all that stuff. I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'll do that later. But then I ended up not doing it. But then I did somehow get into university in arts, and that was not even based on like crazy talent, you know. It was more like my father knew somebody who knew it was like horrible in a way to get in through that, but that was my story. I got the BA then, but without having the A levels, which is just like, and nobody has ever asked me to see the A levels, or has it ever played any kind of difference in me getting a job, or like, yes, I couldn't become a teacher, but I also never wanted to become a teacher. I wanted to be an artist. And yeah, it's just so funny because my mom, she placed a lot of pressure on me to do these A levels, like otherwise I might as well just throw my life away already and start working at a grocery store. She was like super, this kind of education snob, which they have here in Iceland like crazy, that especially as a woman, you can't just like go into some kind of industry and become a plumber or something. You have to advance and become more. And I'm really happy that I didn't, kind of pain myself through that, because I could do all kinds of things, like learning how to draw, learning, everything to do with colors and design, and learning how to weld, and, that's just been who I was, But yeah, I guess I connect with what you're saying with having been doing really well in one place and then moving to another place. And because I came from the German school system to Iceland, and I did really well because the German school system was simply much more strict than the Icelandic one. And also this with like 10 is the best number here and 1 is the best number in Germany, and it was just confusing, it's like, huh? But then I moved to America, and that school system was just atrociously bad. It was like really, really, like we didn't learn anything there. And then came back to Iceland. And I guess, by that point I was just so tired of switching schools and stuff that I had kind of like given up, and
tires
glided through, I remember sitting in school when I was in the 8th or 9th grade and saying to myself, I will never, ever have to use this in the future. It's like super cocky, but was I right? Yes, I was, We've got calculators in our phones. We've got every means to acquire the information that we need at each time. We don't have to fill up our capacity with what year, what president was reigning, like, I don't know, this kind of Papagaian, parroting education never really made any sense to me,
Learning by heart.
Not learning dates and numbers, but I loved to learn by heart, and I think it is actually something that most people don't know how to do anymore. And for example, to learn a poem by heart, I do think this is something that trains our brains, not only in a bad way, to be able to memorize.
I think,
but of course, it depends on the topic.
Own instinct and your own interest, and go for it, and it's super good for the brain. But if you just do not have any connection to the subject, and
No.
you don't like it and experience yourself as stupid actually doing it, then I think it can be really bad for you as a kid, because just the self-image gets measured by something that isn't this,
I didn't mean the history part. I never saw sense in learning that by heart, by not understanding it, but just having to take in dates, data about random history, which was chosen by random people, and is not the history of us, but of certain high-ranking people, which we never created.
Yeah.
Of course,
History written
today
by to one.
we can find everything now, everywhere on the internet, these information that we don't need to learn by heart. I remember, though, in my field, you have to learn everything by heart if you want to stand on the stage. That's you can't sing an opera without knowing it by heart. But and I know what you mean, Nicole. It trains your brain. There are ways we can do gymnastics and keep ourselves fit with things like that. I remember also mentioned poems, because in my school time we were told to learn almost everything by heart. It was just crazy. And there was this beautiful young boy who stuttered and who could not for the life of him get the poem. And just because of this, the teacher made fun of him in front of the class, and he was made to look stupid and not smart, and things like this. So it's a very delicate thing, because all of us have a special gift, no matter what.
Yes.
And for example, for me, I learn melodies like this. It's just a gift that just I've always been with me. And other things, text, I'm more telepathic than learning text by heart. I love writing, but so it is, different where our interest lies. However, of course, I have one example that I always think of, because there was this guy who was a ballet dancer with me in the theater. He was from Spain, and he had a father who was a violinist and a conductor, and very, very musical and famous and blah, blah, blah. But his mother was completely, what he said, non-musical. She was so far from being musical. And he said it was so sad that because all kids, 4 of us, did not inherit the musical gift from him. But he was a ballet dancer, and of course a ballet dancer needs to have a rhythm, needs to be in music. And I said, you are a ballet dancer. And he wanted to prove to his father that he would improve, that he could learn it. And I tell you, he was an awful ballet dancer in a classical sense, a beautiful guy. But he was a wonderful modern dancer, though, because there he was just completely, free in himself. And then finally he gave up, because his father kept asking him every year, what are you doing dancing ballet? Because he was such a gifted photographer and an artist, cartoon artist. He gave it all up in order to prove that he could improve in the musical world. And now, of course, today he's a photographer and doing something totally different. But I mean, he stuck to this for years in Germany. So I always, or very often, think about, yes, you can, of course, improve where you're not gifted. Maybe in next life you will be better. But we are really here, I think, for special, to follow our gifts, to follow where we are. That's where we're supposed to give to the world. What do you say, girls?
Agreed. We can learn all kinds of things, but the things that we are naturally good at, the things that we do when we're 2 years old and 5 years old, the ones that give us joy, those are the true callings, like, I think,
yes,
yeah, when people are wondering about their calling, they're often told to kind of like, what did you do to be happy when you were 5, or what were you doing before all of these conditions happened, before you wanted to please your mother and your father, and before you were conscious of the social construct. You know, that's your true calling and your true gift. Absolutely.
It's a good one going back to your childhood. It's a good one because then you remember where was the joy.
Yeah.
You want to say something, Nicole?
Yeah, and you know me, I sometimes like to contradict in a ironic way. But what is if this matrix is meant in a different way? That our true path is to fit in and to be happy with it.
Don't we? You know, don't we naturally do that anyway? Isn't that already kind of so deeply programmed? But then what do you do with your time?
Yeah.
To fit in, you know? I think we do want to fit in, you know, that interdependence idea, you know, that we're not independent or not dependent or codependent, but interdependent, that we like to hear our neighbors laugh because it means that we live in a community of happiness, you know, and that, you know, we would be negatively impacted if they are having an argument, you know. We are interlinked like that, you know. We do fit in. We do fit in. It's like if we see humanity as a pattern, you know, like in order to create the pattern, you have to have some kind of standing outfits, you know, so that there's a pattern going on. Otherwise, it's just a straight line. You know, if we're talking about the matrix and the weaving and all this stuff, you know, like if we allow ourselves to be these spikes in the pattern that create the new pattern, that then we are fitting in. We just don't maybe see the next spike, you know, so far apart. But then the bigger picture will create this like.
It's a strong feeling of belonging to hurt with everyone.
Yeah, maybe we need to let ourselves belong more to the life, you know, or to the
Yes,
you know, that we're not just this earthbound herd, but we are a herd that is like in 5 dimensions or however many dimensions, you know, that we're also part of everybody who has died and everybody who is yet to become alive, you know. If we take this time and this lineal space away, you know, just to the human essence, you know, can we belong to that? Can we? Because frankly, like I don't feel like I've belonged in any kind of group ever. But the biggest feeling of like fulfillment or belonging that I get is to belong to love, you know, as cheesy as it sounds, but it works for me, you know. Like one time I talked to somebody who spoke to the little people of Africa, the Contomble, and I asked for a message from them, and she was, you know, willing to be the kind of like in-between person, and they wanted to tell me that love is fighting for you too, you know, which has just been my mantra, you know, since then. It's just like when I feel isolated and, you know, encaged by what's going on in the world, you know, then I always have this like wider idea of like the world that I cannot see, the world that I'm not yet connected to or will maybe never connect to, has this message, and this message is so strong, and it just says love is fighting for you too, you know. It's not just me doing all the toiling, all the work, you know. I think that to me is true freedom, you know, when you kind of like stop being a slave to the the physical and become this medium between the physical, this connection between the physical and the spiritual, and you allow yourself to be both, and in this in-between state where you're not just like going to work and lugging home the food, and it's all about just I have to clean the toilet, I have to fix the car, You know, like you can become, I was a slave to that. That's all I thought about. It's all I allowed my being to incorporate. And then the more I open up to this love is fighting for me too concept, and this being this connection between the spiritual and the physical, the more it fulfills me in a way that the physical and being successful and good at school and good at work was never able to, you know. But will I fit in? I don't think. I don't think. Maybe
It's
that,
a great, yeah, it's a great sentence. It's a great
it's
thing.
really powerful, I find.
Yes, it is.
It's a little cheesy at the beginning. I was like, oh, this sounds like some yogi tea bag, you know. But the more I thought about it,
I love it.
Yeah, it does give you some kind of strength.
And because I'm not sure, maybe the way we talk could seem as if we all just want to sit down, put our hands in our lap, meditate, and be happy and be free. But I mean, as far as I know you and I know myself, is that we, of course, love to put our energy in projects and work, do things, be active.
Sure.
And but it's about, yeah, I think this consciousness is about doing things in a conscious way and appreciating them, loving to do them. And freedom is not about
No. Although sometimes just doing nothing is also, you know,
definitely important to align and to see where I might be running in the wrong direction or whatever.
But yeah, I think I spoke about it shortly last time. I don't remember whether it was on while we were recording, but this stumbled across somebody who was pointing out that freedom from something means that you just basically, you want to avoid it, you know, and like sitting and just meditating is, to me, is avoiding everything that's piling up, the dishing, the washing, the mowing the lawn, the, you know, like growing, whatever, you know, like it's great that some people can be completely free from this, you know, but I don't have that luxury. Like I don't want that. I want to work, like you say. I want to put my energy into projects and see the fruits of my labor. And I found this really powerful because it was, you know, if you just twist around and say, you know, instead of wanting freedom from, to let something go, you have to let it in, you know, you have to let it in and you need to go through it. And then you are actually free from it. While you're just trying to letting it go and just avoiding it and putting it behind you, you will forever be towing it with you in a big bag.
Yeah, or chased by it.
And then sitting and meditating, that's going on in your mind is all of those things that you wanted freedom from, you know, that you were trying to just buy yourself by avoiding it, you know. And this is the cultural definition I find a little bit, you know, like when people actually do go to a resort and start meditating, and then all the shit that they didn't go through, let in, is what they're having to deal with, you know. And then they think, oh no, this meditating and this resort is nothing for me, like this lifestyle, I best go back to work and just continue, you know. I think if we as a society at large learn to learn the tools of letting go of old trauma, letting go of old hurts, you know, by letting in.
Yeah.
And then we come back to the conversation that we started with the neighbors, you know, like instead of you sitting there saying like, oh, this annoys me so much that they spray this horrible good smell over the bad smell, you know, then you're just like, you're not letting that conversation happen, and they can't let that conversation happen because they just like depend on you just letting it go, you know. And like, yeah, this is the way that we've been kept down for a long time, you know, like afraid, fear of not being allowed to let those emotions in, and like just afraid of emotions. Basically, I spent most of my life like that. I was afraid of feeling the mountain of emotions that I had been taught to just stick to the side and get over it, you know, like. And the fact is that it never leaves you. It never leaves your energy field, you know.
Mm.
There's no
to be tough, yeah. But just facing the fears can create a miracle, allowing the fear to, let's say, letting it be and facing it. I've experienced that many times.
Yeah.
And until now,
I'm also talking to my body now. What?
No, I was just saying, until now, I somehow put it away because I was strong, but these past days while I was sick, I could feel how it was affecting me, and that I had to change something. And it's something small and simple where you can find a solution easily. So sometimes our body needs to tell us. Sorry,
yes,
Sólrún.
Yes. No. It's just that I'm really focusing on my body parts and asking my body, especially because I had a knee that was and has been for years, and and then I started doing exercises and starting talking to my knee. And then I, use my own breathing and toning technique, and then listen to the knee, and it's gone. I tell you guys, it's gone. And my knee has been swollen for 8 or 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I think I did it maybe 2 times, and it's gone. And I can't be. I'm just going, hitting my knee and saying, where is the swelling? It's gone. And it's not knacking. It used to go every time I would move it. It's not doing that anymore. But I went into a deep insight with that knee. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so, we're so powerful. We can do so many things. And I also wanted to say, because you were talking about being considerate, of course, in certain time, I mean, we don't yell through the night and so that our neighbors can't sleep. But the Italians, they are loud. They speak a lot, like a waterfall sometimes, but they are loud. And in the summertime, I hear them in the village, maybe at midnight, with the kids, and they don't care if somebody hears them. They just walk all over the place. And I lie in my bed and thinking, oh, how nice to feel the life in the village. Basta. And I fall back asleep. It's also our that has a great effect of how we experience things, of course.
Yeah, our belief system behind our emotions or our feelings. Yeah, this is what you learn when you do this cognitive behavior therapy very much, where you have a belief like, oh, the neighbors, I can't sleep because the neighbors are so loud. And then what's the thought, the emotion behind that? Was it because you were told when you were young to not be loud when somebody else was sleeping? And then we begin to question whether it really is loud, or whether we're just like put up in this box of what we used to experience as children.
In Germany, normally it's the other way around, that or when my daughter was small, that was the case, that the parents tiptoed because they wanted their children to sleep at 8 so that they could have time, freedom. And then everyone had to be quiet so the children won't, or the babies wouldn't wake up.
Mhm.
And once you're used to only being asleep when everything's quiet, it is irritating as soon as there's noise around.
I actually did that with my kids. No tiptoeing, life in the apartment, music, whatever. My kids both would just boom sleep. So
It's
that
what
was
kids normally
what
do.
they grew up with. Yeah, exactly. Guys, time is flying. When
Time
we're
is
having
up,
fun.
yes.
Yes, but I was just thinking, is there anything, let's say, juicy, taboo you wanna mention before we finish? Something you wanna touch on? There are so many to pick from your list, Una.
Yeah, but they're all like almost topics. Just either we've kind of touched on some of those things, you know, or we can just speak about them separately. Like
Mhm.
I'm sure.
some people will pause the video on the where I hold it up, and you
Oh
know,
my God.
good and can be. You know, these are just topics that I know are kind of not to be spoken about, you know. And while these, of course, yeah, the main topics that we don't speak about in public, religion, politics, you know, and we don't make ourselves big, you know, and this, like, basically what controls us is fear. Fear is the opposite of love, you know, and love is freedom, wants everyone to be free and feel free. And to know that they are free, they just choose not to act on it, which is fine also. There's also like, just because we want to be free doesn't mean everybody has to be free. You know, sometimes being tied down somewhere feels safe, and you know, the time will come. Everybody gets to their spot in good time, you know.
Absolutely.
I used to be so kind of like, everybody must be on my side and be, you know, and it's so good to be free of that as well, to accept people as they are, and you know, we don't have to fix anything.
That's
but
very true.
We can have a conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to address, you mentioned that in a, well, actually, it just reminded me, probably, I can't remember exactly what you said, but it reminded me of, in these past, let's say, 2.5 years now, or a little bit more, we are in a special times, even though, of course, it has been building up for years before what's going on in the world. And what I feel when I look around, there's a lot of focus on the information, and you know, if you go into the platforms and on discussions and shocked about this and shocked about that, and posting all the horrible things, and all this fear mongering going on. I feel it's a lot of this going on, and I just feel I'm watching a little bit from a distance and just seeing, and even people who are seeing, let's say, the new earth being born, but people, I don't know, we all talk about self-realization, or working on ourselves, facing our fears, deprogramming, but still there's a lot of focus going on to all that, instead of taking the energy back home and create what we want to experience. You see what I'm saying? And I feel that at least now, maybe I'm completely wrong, but that so huge amount of people are participating in all of this, what's wrong, the chaos and what could happen and this and that, and not so many on what we want to create.
Yeah, it's like they're virtue signaling. I know what's going on. I partake in the social media, you know, I partake in the media. I'm virtue signaling that I am not mad, that I care, you know, but then in the same way, they're not taking responsibility for what has happened, you know, that everybody has a part in creating this reality that has now become what we are living, you know, because we have given our power away.
Sure.
You know, and if we don't want to look that in the eye, that also means we don't have to do anything about it, you know, and nobody wants to pick up a shovel and a spade and start digging the field and making stuff happen, because there's so much comfort in the life that they already have, with which they have paid, with their freedom, you know, and their choices being made by other people, you know. We're in a little bit of a zwickmühle, you know, at the moment. There's kind of like where we, on the one hand, see that something's wrong, but then we've given away all the power to do something drastic about it, you know. So it's easier to say, I don't believe that it's really happening. I don't believe that there is a bad power at force that has got, you know, plans that stretch over 50 years and have started 50 years ago, you know. It's just too much to bear, you know, which I understand. I don't want to think about those things either. But I think it's like,
yes, but I'm also asking, but there are a lot of people who can visualize the new earth, that timeline that is on higher vibrating, let's say frequency, whatever we're going to say, a life on this planet. But the complaining about what might be or what has happened is the focus is too much there, is what I see, instead of saying, okay, I'll take my power back home. And of course, I take the responsibility for my part in creating this, absolutely. But now I want to, yes, it's here. I know what's going on and I know what was planned, but I am going to put my focus here, what I want to see in the higher frequency.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
But we've been conditioned.
And I'm not going to participate in the madness or in the fear or whatever.
But we've been conditioned over the last years to virtue signal whenever there's something going on. We put a little filter across the Facebook hidden profile picture with this. We're saying, you know, oh, I am aware. I am doing the right thing. I am on the right side of things, you know. And so I think while we're doing that, while we feel this need to always signal, then we cannot be grateful for everything that is outside of that world. Like what you're focusing on the outside is something that you have found gratitude for. You say, okay, I am aware of this, but I'm grateful that I have this power, that I have this space, that I have this energy that I can bring to people. And I think that is, at the end of the day, what's lacking in people's lives. There is nothing to be grateful for, you know. It's an exercise to feel grateful every day, to be grateful, you know. And like our religion has been taken away, so we don't say grace before we eat. We don't make it a habit to thank the earth or the gods or the god or whatever you want to thank for everything that you receive on a daily basis. We just take things for granted, and you know, because we've been raised to be these like unhappy beings, basically, by the state and by, you know, like the social media is mainly focuses on what you don't have, It's never, there's like such a small amount that is focusing on your power. Like it stands out when somebody is focusing on how powerful you are. And then even then, you read to the end of the text and it's like, join my masterclass, to reach your full potential, instead of like, hey, and a great day to you because you're great and I love you, like is like, yeah, I think that's the problem, that we're so not grateful for the opportunities that we do have, that we don't see them, that it's just complaining and feeling fear. And I mean, fear is the easiest way to control people with, and what we were talking about last time with
and taking things for granted.
Yeah, and just fear that somebody is going to take this stuff away, from you, everything that you have. Like at the end of the day, that's all we learn about on TV is some shit that you need to buy because we don't have it, and you need more and you need better, and the neighbor's got a new lawnmower, so you need a new lawnmower.
But this is a very European way of thinking. In most parts of the world, people have been taking away everything they have. They don't have so much to lose. This is a very Western way, because people in Europe are now losing everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm only a European. I have never lived anywhere outside. Okay, I lived for a year in America, but that doesn't really count, my worldview is a European worldview. I can only judge what I know, But yeah, absolutely. In other communities and places, there's much more gratitude. Like I heard from a friend who went to Bali, and there were shrines on every corner, or my dad went to India and they were feeding the cockroaches and the rats, and this kind of, that I think. Let's face it, that the majority of what's on social media, at least for me, over here, is created by people from here around me. If we go onto those platforms, it's going to be like the general consensus, that is filling those platforms, and that's going to color us, because we have to really actively seek the influences from India or Bali or something, we'd have to like really go out of our way to access those things over these platforms, Yeah, I think if we feel gratitude, then we feel grateful and we feel freedom, right?
I'm sure, Nicole, you are also living, experiencing different mentality in Argentina and Brazil.
Yes, and I'm thankful for this gift. It's teaching me so much. Really.
Ladies, anything else you want to say as a last thing?
I think we have spoken enough.
We've said enough today.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure being with you. Wise women. All right, girls. Then until next time, we pick something from your list.
What shall we call it? Instead of bucket list, it's the shit list.
The taboo list.
Things.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I sometimes feel like I'm a very old lady. But I should be all like free and hip and young and free and.
Well,
I feel like I've been an old lady in the making ever since I was born.
It gets better when you turn 50, you start to be young.
I'm about to be 40. That's in December, it's my first proper big birthday. I look forward to.
When will you turn 40?
On the 28th of December.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You are a December child. Okay.
With Capricorn.
Yes. No, you're not a
Then
22.
let's
yes.
end the recording.
Yes.
Ciao.
Okay, now. Ciao.